My name is Sadhvi Bhagavati Saraswati, and I am joining you so happily from the banks of the sacred Ganga River in Rishikesh, India. We are in the lap of the Himalayas, and I'm the Secretary General of Global Interfaith WASH Alliance. It is a large organization, the world's first, I believe, that has brought religious heads together of the different religions for water, sanitation, and hygiene. And we are working extensively throughout India to bring about what we call a Swachhata Kranti, a revolution in cleanliness of our water, of our land, and of the nation. And I'm also the president of Divine Shakti Foundation, which is an organization working for women, women's empowerment, children, girls. We run a variety of free educational programs, empowerment programs, vocational training programs, upliftment programs, as much as we can do for our divine Shakti, that sacred divine power that's present in women and girls, of course, but also present in all and present in Mother Nature and Mother Earth. So there's also a lot of environmental protection work that we're doing. And of course, I'm based at Parmarth Nikethan Ashram here in Rishikesh, which is one of India's largest interfaith spiritual organizations. The work that we do is rooted in our spirituality. I often say that if you looked at us from the top down, we would look like any large philanthropic, humanitarian, charitable organization. But ultimately, from the ground up, from the foundation, from the soil, what we are is a religious organization, deeply rooted in the belief, in the truth, that we are all one. And so the service is the most natural outcome of that spiritual belief. If I trip and I fall and I injure my right leg, my left leg is going to pick up the extra weight. It's what we call limping. But no one ever has to say, oh, humanitarian left leg, would you mind picking up some extra weight? It does it automatically because it understands that the right leg is self. And it never complains and it never says, oh, God, enough. Like, I did it last week. I did it the week before. Let that right leg pick up the weight for a while. It'll keep doing it. As long as my right leg needs it, the left leg will keep picking up the weight. And if the day after I hurt my leg, I end up with a toothache and then a stomach ache, and then maybe I get bit by a mosquito and so it itches me. Maybe I get every day something. The body will keep responding. The immune system will keep responding. All of the systems of my body will keep responding. There's no sense in which any part of the body will ever say, you know what? I did the right leg injury. I did the stomach ache. I did the headache, but mosquito bite? No. I'm really at my limit for this week. Maybe if you come back to me next week with a mosquito bite, I'll be able to scratch it. The self just keeps serving the self because it understands itself. And that's really the spiritual philosophy, the roots, the foundation from which we serve is the world is self. And so if you look back, I've been in India now almost 25 years. And if I look back on the work that we've done, and I purposely put it in the, tongue-in-cheek quotation marks because it doesn't feel like work. It's what we call seva. It's service, it's selfless service, and it's part of our spiritual practice. So it's not about we serve you, we who have serve those who don't, or we who are the great humanitarians serve the needy. It's that we are blessed to be given the opportunity to experience ourselves through you. And so whether it's through young children in school, whether it's through village women learning to build toilets, whether it's through cleaning rivers, planting trees, disaster relief, it's an opportunity in those we are serving and in the act of service to actually be an instrument in the hands of the divine. And that's why, as I was saying, for the, almost 25 years that I've been here, the service that we've done has been so extensive. I used to say that our job description was yes. Our aims and objectives were yes. That literally it was whatever is needed. Yes. In the same way that the body would never say, no, no budget for stomach ache this week, no time for stomach ache this week. If there's a stomach ache, you address it. In the same way that a mother, whatever it is that's ailing her child, she responds. No mother would ever say, you know what, you had a fever last night, like I'm done. Sorry. Hit my rope, won't take care of your fever tonight. And that's really the spiritual way that we work. And so whatever it is that's needed, our motto has always been yes, that if it ends up in our lap, it is because God wants us to do this work. And so what we are seeing so much these days, the reason that we took up water, sanitation, and hygiene with such a passion is because we realized that it actually underscored everything else we were doing. You do educational programs. You provide schools, computer centers, vocational training programs. But if you don't provide toilets, almost 25% of girls drop out of school when they start menstruating, simply because there isn't a toilet for them to properly and privately take care of themselves, and because they haven't been properly trained and schooled and educated and empowered to understand how to take care of their monthly periods. So something as simple as that. Or children without access to clean water. Their guts ravaged by bacteria are not able to come to school. They're at home with diarrhea. So you can build as beautiful a center as you want. You can fill it with as much opportunity as you want. But if these kids are home with diarrhea, or the girls can't come because they're menstruating, you've shot yourself in the foot. We also run a lot of free medical health care programs. We have a free clinic on campus, and it does a lot of work in the villages. We run a wide variety of free medical care camps during the year. And again, we realized the number of illnesses and ailments that were due to lack of clean water, lack of sanitation, lack of hygiene. And so you have people come, you medicate them, you treat them. But then if you send them home to just keep drinking the same bad water, to just keep defecating outside and ending up polluting their own fields, or having, flies land on the poop and then land on their food and then they get sick, and not learning proper hand washing techniques, they're just going to be the same people showing up week after week with the same illnesses that are just going to get worse. And so in the same way, we recognized everything we were doing. Water, sanitation, hygiene was really at the foundation. And even something as global, as vast as peace. You know, you think about peace. Well, okay, well, what does sanitation have to do with peace? Or hygiene have to do with peace? Well, the former Secretary General of the UN said that the next world war is going to be over water. We've already got way too many refugees on the planet, and UN statistics say that by 2040, we could have hundreds of millions of water refugees. People who have to leave their homes simply due to lack of clean water. By 2030, India is going to have only half the drinking water it needs. And the rest of the world is on track to get there by 2040. And so if we're fighting people and killing people over the way they pray, over the color of their skin, over with whom they like to do what in bed behind closed doors, now you imagine how we're going to live in our societies when that water is life or death for either me or you. When I literally have to fight you for the water to live. And so this is where we got very, very deeply immersed in work for WASH. But our spiritual teachings and practice run through all of it. The vast majority of people who work with us are volunteers, and they work as a spiritual practice, as a way to experience oneness with the world, with the Creator and the creation through the service, as a way to be a tool, an instrument in the hands of the divine. As I share so frequently, one of my favorite teachings of not the Hindu tradition is the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi that prays, "O Lord, make me an instrument of thy mercy, an instrument of thy grace." And what I love about that whole prayer is the word instrument. Most of us are so focused on how we look, on the packaging. But the only thing that makes an instrument a tool, good or not good, is actually how effective it is. Nobody would ever say, "Oh, that's a beautiful diamond-covered hammer. Oh, it doesn't work. You can't hammer in a nail. No problem. At least it's beautiful." If you want a hammer, you need a hammer that works, that's effective. And in the same way, it's such a beautiful way of re-anchoring in that truth, that we are here to be tools. We're here to be instruments. It's not about how are we dressed or what are how are we accessorized? How much are we worth? Is this a gold hammer? All that matters is, how good of a tool are you? How good of an instrument are you in God's hands? And that's our spiritual way of serving. There's a very core teaching in the Hindu tradition, in the Bhagavad Gita, of what's called karma yoga. And the word karma literally means action. And yoga, of course, is yoga, but the word yoga literally means, the Sanskrit meaning of yoga is union. And so karma yoga literally means action that comes out of the awareness of unity, of union, or action through which I experience union. And so there's a huge emphasis in the Hindu tradition on karma yoga. And karma yoga is what we do. It's action in the service of union. Union with the divine, the creator and the creation. And it's action that comes out of the experience, the awareness, the knowing of our union. So karma yoga is a very core tenet for us personally, but also for the whole Hindu tradition. All of the cutting edge research that I've seen, whether from reading it, whether from listening about it from the experts, is very, very clear. We have the capacity still to make a difference. Whether they agree on exactly what percentage of it is created by man versus what percentage of it is naturally happening with the earth. Yeah, there's, a little bit of healthy scientific debate over that. But the part over which we have no control is sort of a moot point. The part over which we have the control falls into A, how much worse we are making it, but B, the capacity we have to make it better, whether it's that which we are creating or that which is happening naturally. And to me, that's really the key, is how can we be part of the solution rather than part of the problem? So many of us lose ourselves in scientific debate. Well, he says this and she says this, and that which they argue about are nuances. And I don't mean they're irrelevant nuances, but in terms of the core piece, which is our Earth is changing, the temperature is changing, it is getting hotter, it is getting more unpredictable, and the absolute inevitable outcome of that increased heat and increased unpredictability is natural disasters. Fires, hurricanes, we're seeing them already. What can we do, to me, becomes the core piece. Because what all of it also agrees upon is that there's a very significant part that is contributed to it by how we live, by how we produce things, by how we travel, by how we eat, by how our societies are run, by how we live on Mother Earth. And so if I had to narrow it down and say the one most compelling piece of evidence, I would say we are the answer. We are the problem, and we are the solution. To me, that is the non-negotiable piece of evidence. We are the problem, not the exclusive problem, but the major part of the problem. And we are the only solution. When we recognize that we are the problem and that we are the solution, it's incredibly empowering. So the first concrete thing that I would like to see is for us to stop living in a narrative of being the victim. We are not the victims. We are not the victims of climate change. We are not the victims of environmental destruction. We are not the victims of anything that's happening in our world. We are the creators of that. There are people out there who are victims. I don't mean no one is a victim. But I mean we, those who have the luxury to choose. Those who have the luxury to be sitting somewhere and watching this interview on some device. We are not the victims. We are the ones creating the situation. And so in terms of concrete actions, I would say number one, we must take responsibility. We must stop living in a narrative of being victims. Stop living in a narrative of distraction and numbing ourselves. Stop living in a narrative where stress is the new normal. Competition is the new normal. You say to anyone, how are you? Oh, I'm so stressed, my God. Well, yeah, of course you are. I'm also so stressed, my God. Isn't life like that? We've collectively agreed on this narrative that has pulled us away from the truth of who we are. We've taken depression and skyrocketed it right up there to the top of illnesses that people of luxury, people of privilege, people who have the ability to make these choices are suffering from. The steps that we need to take are to reclaim our responsibility. Not in a guilt way, not in a way that we're going to be damned if we don't, but in a way that we will lose the opportunity to fulfill what we have taken birth for if we don't. That we have been given birth with power, with ability. That's what our free will is for. That's what our energy is for. That's what our abilities are for. That's what our creativity and initiative is for. That's what our compassion is for. I have a very deep, deep spiritual belief in a perfection of God and a perfection of creation. There is no way that we would cry at the plight of a homeless child if we weren't supposed to do something to help that child. There is no way that we would feel so deeply inside the pain, the injustice, the sadness of how people are suffering around the world if that pain and sadness weren't meant to be a catalyst for action. The solution to that pain, to those tears, is not another Sara Lee cheesecake so that I can numb myself and forget the pain. It's not social media. It's not binge watching TV. It's not shopping therapy. It's not alcohol. It's not drugs. It's action. All of those feelings inside of us are there as catalysts for action. The way that we feel when we see the face of a newborn child, the way that our face lights up, whether we've ever met this child before, you're standing in line at the grocery store, there's a baby and a stroller in front of you. We all make googly eyes and, hide and seek and whatnot. There is an inherent connection to the creation. There is a way we feel when we watch a sunset, when we watch the waves on the ocean, that fills us when we see the stars in the sky, that fills us with an awareness of our oneness with the planet. But not only the planet, our oneness with all of the universe, all of creation. And that is supposed to be a catalyst to action, not just something that we write underneath a picture on Facebook of the stars. And so the action that we take, there isn't an equation. It's not that the same three things are always the right action, but the right action is that which is born out of connection, born out of courage to feel that connection, and then to stand up and to be the vessels, the vehicles, the channels through which the intelligence of the universe flows and brings about healing and transformation. To be those tools, those instruments of mercy, of grace in the hands of the divine. Where there is hatred, to sow love. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. These are the actions that we need to take. And sure, wherever we are, there will be different needs. Some of them are universal. Human rights, equality, freedom, peace, justice, water. And some of them are local. But it's not about any one of us saying, here are the concrete 3-4 things everyone must do. But what every one of us must do is have the courage to live from that place of connection. And when you speak about climate change, the actions actually, most of them are very clear. We know. The United Nations has told us that, for example, the meat industry, animal agriculture, is the single greatest contributor to climate change. Single greatest contributor. Do we have the courage to actually change something as personal as what we eat? Something that feels so deeply like it is my freedom, my right, what I want, when I want it, how I want it. Do we have the courage to not only pray for our sisters and brothers who are dying of starvation, but actually to make choices in how we eat? Because literally, the grain, the rice, the soy, the corn, the wheat that is being fed to the cows and the pigs and the chickens who become our hamburgers and hot dogs and chicken McNuggets could feed the planet. We produce enough grain to feed 10 billion people a day. As you know, there's only 7-point-something billion on the planet. We literally could feed everyone if we simply took that grain and used it to feed people instead of livestock. The amount of water that goes into the production of one meal of beef, one meal of hamburgers, the amount of water that goes into that is the amount that you use if you bathe every day for 6 months. Do we have the courage to literally go without bathing? Or maybe that isn't courage, maybe that's commitment. To go without bathing for 6 months to offset the water because we chose hamburgers instead of something vegetarian? And we have answers like that. There's so much science that has come out of so many places saying climate change, deforestation, world hunger, water, land. We speak about land shortages and food shortages and water shortages. what we have more than anything is a consciousness shortage. Do we have the courage and the commitment to actually expand our consciousness so that I don't need to eat what I want, when I want, how I want, just to feel free? But I can actually make a choice in service of the planet. We're seeing now with COVID that we don't need to travel all the time. How many of us used to just jump on a plane immediately? Oh, there's a meeting in Vienna, okay. Day in New York, okay. And we're seeing now, oh wait, there's an alternative. And okay, maybe it wouldn't be our first choice, but it's an alternative that we are prepared to make in this moment for the safety and security from COVID. Is that an alternative, a choice that we are prepared to make in coming days to protect the environment, to save on carbon emissions? So many ways. Are we prepared to always buy organic and fair trade? I mean, how many of us, sign petitions and do whatever we can in theory for women's rights, for women's empowerment, for equality? And then how many of us buy things that were produced in sweatshops by women whose lives are endangered every day, just so that we can have more, cheaper? Are we prepared to bring consciousness into every moment? And it's not easy. It's not easy to stand there in a store and bring consciousness to that voice in the head that says, oh, you'd look so cute in that. Oh, get it. It's only this much money. And to bring in some consciousness and to actually wonder, what is the full price tag of that? On the planet, on the soil, on the land, on the air, on the farmers who picked that cotton, on the women, on the children who worked in the sweatshop to produce it. And yeah, the one that's made of organic cotton is more expensive. Instead of buying 5, you can only buy 1 or 2. Is that a choice we're prepared to make? Are we prepared to insist on fair trade? To insist on organic? There's so many ways for us to make differences. And if we see it in that way, we realize it's so empowering. It's not about a guilt trip. It's about an awareness and a recognition and an owning of every one of our power to co-create the world we live in. And that owning of that power would be the core change that I would love to see in the world.